The telegram had arrived on a Tuesday morning in September 1882, and Nathan Grayson knew before he even opened it that his carefully constructed solitary life was about to change forever. He stood on the wooden platform of the train station in Pinos Altos, New Mexico Territory, his weathered hands clutching the piece of paper that had brought him here. The mountain air was crisp and clear, carrying the scent of pine and distant wood smoke. Nathan had chosen this location specifically because it was halfway between his ranch in the valley and Silver City, where the train would arrive carrying Clara Fairmont, the woman he had been corresponding with for nearly 8 months. At 32 years old, Nathan had built a successful cattle operation through backbreaking work and careful management. His ranch, the Double Creek, sprawled across 3,000 acres of good grazing land with water rights to 2 reliable streams. He had everything a man could want except someone to share it with. His previous attempts at courting local women had ended poorly. They had all wanted him to change, to be someone softer or more refined, to move closer to town. Nathan was who he was, a quiet man more comfortable with horses than people, and he had made his peace with that until loneliness had driven him to place an advertisement in a Boston newspaper. Clara's first letter had been different from the others he received. She had not written flowery prose or made elaborate promises. Instead, she had been honest about her circumstances. At 24, she worked in a textile mill 14 hours a day for wages that barely kept her alive. Her parents had died of influenza 3 years prior, and she had no siblings, no prospects, and little hope of improvement in her situation. She wrote that she could cook, so manage a household and work hard. She asked for honesty and kindness in return. Nathan had written back the same day. Their correspondence had grown over the months from practical discussions of life on a ranch to more personal revelations. Clara had shared her love of reading, her memories of her mother's garden, her fear of being trapped forever in the gray industrial landscape of Massachusetts. Nathan had told her about the vast New Mexico skies, the way the mountains turned purple at sunset, the satisfaction of building something lasting with his own hands. Neither of them had mentioned love, but a foundation of mutual respect and cautious hope had formed between them. What Clara had not mentioned in any of her letters was the limp. Nathan spotted her immediately when she stepped carefully down from the passenger car. She was smaller than he had imagined, barely reaching his shoulder, with auburn hair pinned neatly beneath a worn traveling bonnet. Her dress was clean but had been mended many times. She gripped the railing tightly as she descended, favoring her left leg noticeably. A larger woman behind her made an impatient sound, and Clara tried to hurry, nearly losing her balance on the final step. Nathan was there before he consciously decided to move, his hand steady under her elbow. "Miss Fairmont." She looked up at him with eyes the color of creek water in spring, green and brown and gold all at once. Fear and determination warred in her expression. "Mr. Grayson." Her voice was softer than he expected, but clear. "I should have told you." "Told me what?" He kept his hand on her arm, feeling the slight tremor running through her. "About my leg." She said it quickly, like ripping off a bandage. "There was an accident at the mill 2 years ago. A machine malfunction. They saved my leg, but the bones healed wrong. I walk with a limp and I cannot move quickly. If this changes your mind about our arrangement, I understand. I have enough money set aside to pay for a room until I can find work, though I do not know what kind of work that might be in a place like this." Nathan looked at her properly then. Her chin was raised, her shoulders back despite her obvious exhaustion from the journey. She was preparing herself for rejection, for disappointment, but she was not begging. The same honesty that had drawn him to her letters was right there in her face. "I will walk slow," he said quietly, "so we are always together." The fear in her eyes transformed into something else, something that made his chest feel tight. Tears welled but did not fall. "You mean it?" "I do not say things I do not mean, Clara. May I call you Clara?" "Yes, and I will call you Nathan if I may." "You may." He released her arm and gestured toward the baggage car. "Do you have trunks?" "One. It is not heavy." He collected her single battered trunk while she waited, and he noticed how she shifted her weight, trying to ease the strain on her bad leg. The platform was crowded and people jostled past her without regard. When he returned, he offered his arm again. "The wagon is just across the street. We will take our time." She accepted his arm, and they moved together at an easy pace. Nathan adjusted his long stride naturally, and something in Clara's posture relaxed slightly. They walked in silence, but it was not uncomfortable. When they reached the wagon, Nathan helped her up to the bench seat and secured her trunk in the back. The ride from Pino's Altos to the ranch took 3 hours, following a well-maintained road through rolling hills dotted with juniper and piñon pine. The September afternoon was warm but not oppressive, with a breeze that carried the promise of autumn. Nathan let the horses set their own pace, in no hurry to rush this first real time together. "It is beautiful," Clara said after they had traveled for perhaps half an hour. "Your letters described it, but seeing it is different. Wait until we crest the next ridge. You will see the valley properly then." They rode in companionable quiet until they reached the viewpoint. Nathan pulled the horses to a stop, and Clara drew in a sharp breath. Below them, the valley spread out in shades of gold and green, with his ranch buildings nestled near the junction of 2 creeks. The house was modest but well built, with a wide porch and stone chimney. The barn and outbuildings were in good repair, and cattle dotted the pastures in the distance. "That is home," Nathan said, "or it will be if you choose to stay after the wedding." Clara turned to look at him. "You still wish to marry me, even though I did not tell you about my leg?" "I wish you had told me," he said honestly. "Not because it would have changed my mind, but because you should not have carried that worry alone for so long. Why did you not mention it?" She looked down at her hands, folded in her lap. "I was afraid. Every position I applied for in Boston, every opportunity when they saw my limp, they found reasons to choose someone else. I thought perhaps if I could just get here, if you could meet me first and see that I am capable despite it, then maybe you would not send me away." "I am not sending you away, Clara." He waited until she looked at him again. "But I need honesty between us. Can you promise me that?" "Yes, I promise." She took a breath. "Then I should tell you something else. I was afraid to come here. I am still afraid. Everything I know is gone, and I am depending entirely on the kindness of a man I have never met. But I chose to be afraid and come anyway because staying in Boston meant dying slowly in that mill, and I decided I would rather take a chance on living." Nathan felt something shift in his chest, a wall he had not known he was maintaining beginning to crack. That took courage, or desperation. But she smiled slightly when she said it. Sometimes those are the same thing. He clicked his tongue at the horses, and they started forward again. "The preacher in Pino's Altos can marry us tomorrow if you are willing, but if you need more time to be sure, we can wait. You will have your own room in the house regardless." "Your own room?" Clara's surprise was evident. "I thought I would be sharing yours as your wife." Nathan felt heat creep up his neck. "I thought we should perhaps know each other a bit before that. I do not want you to feel obligated." The look Clara gave him was difficult to interpret. "That is very considerate, Nathan. Though I should tell you, I came here prepared to fulfill all the duties of a wife. And you will when you are ready, when we both are." He kept his eyes on the road. I have waited this long for the right woman. I can wait a bit longer to do things proper. They completed the journey in a more comfortable silence, though Nathan caught Clara watching him several times with an expression of cautious wonder. When they finally pulled up in front of the ranch house, the sun was beginning to lower toward the western mountains, painting everything in golden light. Nathan helped Clara down from the wagon, and she stood looking at the house with something like hunger in her eyes. "I can really live here. It is your home now." He retrieved her trunk. "Come on, I will show you around." The house was simple but solid, built of adobe and timber with thick walls that kept it cool in summer and warm in winter. The main room served as kitchen and living area, with a large fireplace and a cookstove Nathan had freighted in from Santa Fe at considerable expense. 2 bedrooms opened off the main room, and a small enclosed porch had been added to the back. "This will be your room," Nathan said, opening the door to the larger bedroom. It held a brass bed frame with a good mattress, a wardrobe, a washstand, and a rocking chair positioned near the window. "It gets the morning sun. I thought you might like that." Clara walked slowly into the room, running her hand along the footboard of the bed. "This is all mine." "Yes, my room is the other one." He set her trunk at the foot of the bed. "I will leave you to settle in. I need to tend the horses and check on a few things in the barn. There is a chicken stew on the stove for supper and bread from yesterday that is still good. Make yourself at home." He started to leave, but Clara's voice stopped him. "Nathan," he turned back, "thank you for not being disappointed in me." "I am not disappointed, Clara, not even a little bit." Her smile was like sunrise. Nathan took his time with the horses, giving Clara space to adjust to her new surroundings. He unhitched the team, rubbed them down, and checked on the other animals in the barn. His ranch hand, Miguel Torres, had left everything in good order before taking the evening off to visit his family in Pinos Altos. Miguel and his wife Rosa lived in a small house on the far side of the property, and they had been with Nathan since he first established the ranch 5 years ago. He trusted them completely, and had already told them about Clara's impending arrival. When Nathan returned to the house as the last light was fading, he found the table set for 2 and Clara standing at the stove, stirring the pot of stew. She had changed into a simpler dress and removed her bonnet, revealing hair that caught the lamplight in shades of copper and gold. "I hope you do not mind," she said. "I want it to be useful." "I do not mind at all." Nathan washed his hands in the basin by the door. "Though you have been traveling for days, you should rest." "I have been sitting for days. Moving feels good." She ladled stew into 2 bowls and brought them to the table with only a slight unevenness in her gait. "Besides, I need to learn where everything is kept." They ate together as darkness settled over the valley. Nathan told her about the ranch, the cattle, the challenges of the coming winter. Clara asked questions that showed she had been paying attention to his letters, remembering details he had shared months ago. The conversation flowed more easily than Nathan had dared hope, and he found himself relaxing in a way he rarely did around people. After supper, Clara insisted on washing the dishes despite Nathan's protests. He dried them and showed her where they belonged, their hands occasionally brushing in the exchange. Each small touch sent an unexpected warmth through him. "I should probably turn in," Clara said finally, setting the last plate in the cupboard. "I am more tired than I realized." "Of course." Nathan lit a candle for her. "If you need anything during the night, my door will be open." She took the candle and their fingers touched again in the transfer. "Nathan, about tomorrow, the wedding, I would like to do it if the offer still stands." His heart beat faster. "It stands." "Then I will be ready whenever you say." That night, Nathan lay in his bed listening to the familiar sounds of his house with the new awareness that someone else was there, someone who would be staying. He had thought he knew what he was getting when he sent for a mail-order bride, a practical arrangement that would benefit them both. But Clara was already more than he had expected, and the way his chest tightened when she smiled at him suggested that this practical arrangement might become something else entirely. In the morning, Nathan rose before dawn as usual and started coffee. He was surprised when Clara emerged from her room fully dressed as the sun was just beginning to lighten the eastern sky. "You are up early," he said. "Mill habits. We started at 5 every morning." She moved to the stove. "Let me make breakfast. You have work to do, I imagine." Nathan did have work to do, but he found himself reluctant to leave. Instead, he sat at the table and watched Clara move around the kitchen, learning its layout, her limp barely slowing her down. She made biscuits and gravy, fried eggs and fresh coffee, working with the efficiency of someone accustomed to making the most of limited time. They ate as the sun rose, painting the valley in shades of rose and gold. "I was thinking," Nathan said carefully, "we could ride into Pino's Altos around midday, see the preacher, if you are still sure." "I am sure." Clara met his eyes directly. "Are you?" "Yes." "Then midday is fine." She hesitated. "I do not have anything special to wear. My traveling dress is the best I own." "You look fine just as you are." Nathan meant it. There was a quiet dignity in the way Clara carried herself, a strength that had nothing to do with physical perfection. They made the trip to Pino's Altos in the late morning, the wagon rolling steadily along the familiar road. Nathan had hitched up his gentler team and made sure Clara was comfortable on the bench beside him. She had changed into her traveling dress and pinned her hair up with particular care, and Nathan wore his best shirt and the coat he reserved for trips to town. Pino's Altos was a mining town clinging to the sides of the mountains, smaller than Silver City, but still bustling with activity. The discovery of gold in the early 1860s had brought a rush of prospectors, and while the richest veins had played out, enough remained to keep the town alive. The main street was lined with businesses serving the miners and ranchers, saloons, a general store, a blacksmith, and a small church at the far end. Reverend Thomas Hayes was a transplanted Methodist minister from Ohio who had come west for his health and stayed for the souls he felt needed saving. He was a thin man with kind eyes and a habit of quoting scripture at unpredictable moments. Nathan had always found him sincere if occasionally overwhelming. "Mr. Grayson." The Reverend greeted them warmly when they appeared at the church door. "And this must be Miss Fairmont." "Welcome, my dear. Welcome to New Mexico territory." "Thank you, Reverend," Clara said quietly. "Nathan tells me you wish to be married today. A fine decision, fine indeed. The Lord says it is not good for man to be alone, and I see he has provided a helpmate for you both." He ushered them into the small church, cool and dim after the brightness outside. "Do you have witnesses? We will need two." Nathan had anticipated this. "I thought we might ask at the general store. Mr. and Mrs. Brennan know me well enough." "Excellent, excellent." "You go fetch them while I prepare. Miss Fairmont can wait here." Nathan hesitated, looking at Clara. "Will you be all right?" "I will be fine." She gave him a small smile. "Go on." He returned quickly with Henry and Margaret Brennan, a couple in their 50s who ran the general store and were known for their fairness and discretion. Margaret took Clara's hands in hers immediately. "What a lovely bride you make, dear. Nathan is a good man. You will be happy here." The ceremony itself was brief and simple. Nathan and Clara stood before the Reverend in the quiet church, sunlight streaming through the plain glass windows, and spoke their vows. When Nathan slipped the simple gold band he had purchased months ago in hopeful anticipation onto Clara's finger, her hands trembled slightly. His own were steady, but his heart pounded hard enough that he wondered if she could hear it. "You may kiss your bride," Reverend Hayes announced with satisfaction. Nathan had not thought this far ahead. He leaned down slowly, giving Clara time to pull away if she wished. She did not. Her lips were soft and warm, and the kiss was chaste but sent heat flooding through him nonetheless. When they separated, her cheeks were flushed, and her eyes were bright. They were married. The Brennans insisted on giving them a wedding gift, a set of fine linen napkins that Margaret had embroidered herself. Clara thanked them with genuine warmth, and Nathan could see her beginning to relax slightly, to believe that perhaps she might truly belong here. The ride back to the ranch was different from any of their previous journeys together. Clara was his wife now, legally and before God. The weight of that responsibility and the unexpected surge of protectiveness he felt toward her settled over Nathan like a mantle. He had promised to care for this woman, and he intended to honor that promise with everything he had. "Are you hungry?" he asked as they neared home. "We could stop and have a proper wedding meal," Clara shook her head. "I would rather just go home if that is all right with you." Home. She had called it home. That is more than all right. When they arrived at the ranch, Miguel was waiting near the barn. He approached the wagon with his hat in his hands, a broad smile on his weathered face. "Congratulations, boss, Mrs. Grayson." He nodded respectfully to Clara. "My Rosa, she wanted you to have this for your wedding day." He produced a covered basket. "She made tamales and some of her special wedding cookies. She would have come herself, but the baby has been fussy today. Please thank her for us," Clara said warmly. "And congratulate her on the baby. Nathan told me you have a new son." Miguel's face lit up. "Yes, Mrs. Little Miguel, we call him Miguelito. He is 3 months now. I would love to meet him when Rosa feels up to visitors. She will like that very much, Mrs." Nathan helped Clara down from the wagon, and they carried Rosa's basket into the house. The tamales were still warm, and the cookies were sweet with cinnamon and honey. They ate at the table that was now theirs together, and Nathan found himself watching Clara, still half expecting to wake up and find this had all been a dream. "What are you thinking?" Clara asked, catching him staring. "That I am glad you answered my advertisement. So am I." She reached across the table and laid her hand over his. "I was so afraid, Nathan, afraid that I would get here and you would take one look at me and regret everything. Afraid that I would not be able to do the work needed on a ranch, afraid that I made a terrible mistake. And now I think perhaps I made the first right decision in a very long time." She squeezed his hand, "though I am still a little afraid." "Of what?" she blushed. "Tonight. I know what happens between a husband and wife, but knowing and experiencing are different things." Nathan's mouth went dry. "Clara, I meant what I said. We do not have to rush anything. But I am your wife now. You have been my wife for approximately 4 hours. I think we can take our time getting used to that." He stood, still holding her hand. "Come with me. I want to show you something." He led her outside, moving at her pace, and walked her down to the creek that ran behind the house. Cottonwood trees grew thick along the banks, their leaves already beginning to turn yellow with the change of seasons. A flat rock jutted out over a deep pool, and Nathan had spent countless evenings sitting there, watching the water flow past. "This is my favorite spot on the whole ranch," he said. "When things get overwhelming, I come here. The sound of the water helps me think." They sat together on the rock, and Clara removed her shoes and stockings without self-consciousness, dangling her feet in the cool water. Nathan noticed the scars on her left leg, puckered and red against her pale skin. She saw him looking and tensed. "The machine caught my leg," she said quietly. Crush the bones. The doctor wanted to amputate, but I begged him to try to save it. He did his best, but it healed crooked. Some days it hurts more than others. Does it hurt today? A little. The wagon ride was long. There is a hot spring about a mile from here. The Membrino Apache used to use it for healing before they were moved to the reservation. The hot water helps with aches and pains. I could take you there sometime if you like. Clara looked at him with surprise. You would do that? Why would I not? I just thought you might find my limitations frustrating. My employers in Boston certainly did. Your employers in Boston were fools. Nathan said it matter-of-factly. You got yourself across an entire continent with a bad leg and no help. That is not limitation. That is determination. Tears spilled down Clara's cheeks, and Nathan instinctively reached to brush them away. I am sorry, she said, laughing a little through the tears. I do not usually cry so much. I think I am just tired and overwhelmed, and you keep being kind to me, and I am not sure what to do with that. Get used to it, Nathan said, because I plan to keep being kind to you for a very long time. She leaned her head against his shoulder, a gesture of trust that made his heart ache. They sat like that as the sun moved lower in the sky, the water singing over the stones, and Nathan thought that perhaps he was beginning to understand what happiness felt like. That night, Clara did retire to her own room, though Nathan saw the question in her eyes. He wanted her, that much he could not deny, but he wanted more than just the physical joining. He wanted her to choose him not out of obligation, but because she wanted to, and that would take time. The days that followed fell into a rhythm. Nathan rose early and worked the ranch with Miguel, tending cattle, mending fences, preparing for winter. Clara threw herself into making the house a home, cleaning and organizing, learning to cook with the supplies available in their remote location. She proved to be resourceful and capable, adapting to the challenges of ranch life with the same determination she had shown in coming west. Nathan made a point of returning to the house for the midday meal, unwilling to spend entire days away from his new wife. He told himself it was to check on her to make sure she was managing, but the truth was simpler. He liked being near her. He liked the way she hummed while she worked, the way she asked questions about everything, genuinely interested in his answers. He liked coming home to lamplight, and the smell of cooking and the knowledge that someone was waiting for him. 2 weeks after their wedding, Nathan kept his promise about the hot spring. He packed supplies for a picnic and helped Clara onto his gentlest mare, a calm bay named Molly who would not spook at shadows. The ride was slow and careful, Nathan leading Molly while riding his own horse alongside. The hot spring bubbled up from the rocks in a secluded canyon, steam rising into the cool autumn air. Someone, probably the Apache in years past, had built a stone wall around part of the spring to create a deeper pool. Nathan had brought towels and soap, and he had cleared the area of brush the day before. It is beautiful, Clara breathed, sliding down from Molly with Nathan's help. The water stays hot year-round. You can swim if you like. I will wait over there. He gestured to a spot around the bend out of sight. Nathan, Clara caught his arm. You do not have to leave. We are married. I know, but I want you to be comfortable. She studied his face for a long moment. What if I want you to stay? His pulse jumped. Clara, I am not asking you to join me in the water, but you could sit nearby. Talk to me. I feel safe when you are close. So Nathan sat on a sun-warmed boulder while Clara discreetly undressed behind some bushes and slipped into the steaming water. She sighed with relief, and he heard her moving around, testing the depth. How does it feel? He called, like heaven. My leg has not felt this good since before the accident. There was wonder in her voice. Thank you for bringing me here. They talked while she soaked, about everything and nothing. Clara told him stories from her childhood, about her father who had been a clerk and her mother who had grown prize-winning roses. Nathan shared memories of growing up on a hardscrabble farm in Kansas, learning cattle work from an uncle after his own father died young. "Is that why you never married before?" Clara asked. "Because you were too busy building the ranch." "Partly. Mostly, I think I was waiting for the right person." He paused. "I was engaged once when I was 23, a girl from town, but she wanted me to give up ranching to get a job as a shopkeeper or a clerk. When I refused, she married someone else. That must have hurt. At the time, yes. Now I am grateful. She would have been miserable here, and I would have been miserable anywhere else." He turned his head slightly, though he still could not see her. "What about you? Was there ever anyone?" "No, I work too much, and what man wants a wife who limps?" She said it without self-pity, just stating a fact. "Though there was a foreman at the mill who paid me attention for a while. I thought perhaps he was courting me, but it turned out he just wanted someone to do his laundry and mending for free. When I refused, he spread rumors that I was immoral. After that, the other workers avoided me." Anger flared hot in Nathan's chest. "People can be cruel." "Yes, but some people can be kind too, like you." When Clara emerged from the spring, dressed again and glowing from the heat, Nathan spread out the picnic he had packed. They ate bread and cheese and dried apples, sitting close together on a blanket in the afternoon sun. Clara's wet hair hung loose down her back, drying in dark copper waves, and Nathan had to stop himself from reaching out to touch it. "Can we come back here?" Clara asked. "It helps so much." "Whenever you want." She leaned against him, comfortable now with small touches. "I think I am falling in love with this place. The space, the sky, the quiet. Boston was always so gray and loud. This feels like the world has room to breathe." "And what about me?" Nathan asked before he could stop himself. "Are you falling in love with me too?" Clara went still. Then she turned to look at him directly, her green gold eyes serious. "I am beginning to think I might be. Is that all right?" "It is more than all right." He cupped her face gently in his calloused hand. "Because I know I am falling in love with you." This kiss was different from their chaste wedding kiss. Clara's lips parted under his, and when his arms went around her, she pressed closer. Heat that had nothing to do with the hot spring flooded through him, and when they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "Nathan," Clara whispered, "I think maybe I do not need my own room anymore." His entire body tightened. "Are you sure?" "I am sure." She touched his face. "I know we have only been married a short time, but I trust you, and I want to be your wife in every way." They rode back to the ranch in the golden afternoon light, anticipation humming between them. Nathan helped Clara down from her horse and held her hand as they walked into the house together. Inside, he turned to her, suddenly nervous in a way he had not been since he was a boy. "I have never," he started, then stopped. "This is my first time too." Surprise and tenderness crossed Clara's face. "Truly, I wanted it to matter, to be with someone who mattered." "Then we will figure it out together." They moved to Nathan's room, the larger of the two, with windows facing west toward the mountains. Afternoon light slanted across the bed, warm and golden. Nathan closed the door and turned to find Clara watching him, nervous but determined. "I do not know what to do," she admitted. "Neither do I. But I know I love you, and I know I want to make you happy." He crossed to her and began carefully unpinning her hair. "We will go slow." And they did. Every button undone was a small revelation, every touch tentative and wondering. When Nathan finally laid Clara on the bed and covered her body with his, she was trembling, and so was he. There was awkwardness and uncertainty, fumbling and whispered questions, but there was also tenderness and care and a growing passion that surprised them both. Afterwards, they lay tangled together, Clara's head on Nathan's chest, his arm around her shoulders. The room had gone blue with twilight, and neither of them had moved to light a lamp. "That was," Clara started, then laughed softly. "I do not have words. Mm." Nathan pressed a kiss to her hair. "Are you all right?" "Better than all right." She traced patterns on his bare chest. "Nathan, I need to tell you something." He tensed slightly. "What is it?" "I love you. I know it has only been a few weeks, but I do. You are the kindest, most genuine person I have ever known, and I am so grateful that I found you." Relief and joy flooded through him. "I love you too, Clara, more than I thought possible." They stayed in bed as darkness fell completely, talking quietly, learning the landscape of each other's bodies through gentle touch. Eventually, hunger drove them to dress and find something to eat, and they raided the kitchen like children, laughing and feeding each other bites of bread and cold chicken. That night, Clara moved her belongings into Nathan's room, and it became theirs. The other bedroom stood empty, waiting for a future neither of them dared speak aloud yet, though the hope was there in every glance. The weeks passed, and autumn deepened into early winter. The cattle were brought down from the high pastures, and Nathan worked long days preparing the ranch for the cold months ahead. Clara made the house snug, stuffing rags in gaps around windows and doors, laying in supplies of preserved food. She also began visiting with Rosa Torres, and the two women formed a friendship that helped ease some of Clara's lingering loneliness for female companionship. In mid-November, Nathan took Clara into Silver City for the first time, a bigger town about 20 miles southwest of Pinos Altos. Silver City was the county seat, bustling with commerce from the nearby mines. The streets were wide and lined with substantial buildings, much grander than anything in Pinos Altos. Clara gazed around with wide eyes as Nathan helped her down from the wagon. "It is so busy." "Silver City is growing fast. The railroad talks about building a spur line here." Nathan offered his arm. "There is a dressmaker on Broadway Street. I thought you might like some new clothes." "Nathan, that is not necessary. You have been wearing the same 3 dresses since you arrived." "It is necessary." He guided her down the wooden sidewalk. "Besides, I want to spoil my wife a little." At the dressmaker's shop, a cheerful woman named Mrs. Patterson took Clara's measurements and showed her fabrics and patterns. Nathan sat patiently while Clara debated options, her natural frugality warring with desire for something pretty. In the end, she chose practical calico for everyday dresses, but allowed herself one good wool dress in a deep green that Nathan said matched her eyes. While they waited for the dresses to be sewn, Nathan took Clara to lunch at the dining room of the Broadway Hotel, the finest establishment in town. Clara was nervous among the well-dressed diners, but Nathan treated her with such obvious devotion that she gradually relaxed. "You are spoiling me," she said over roast beef and potatoes. "I intend to make a habit of it. I could get used to this." "Good." He reached across the table and took her hand. "You deserve good things, Clara. I want to give them to you." On the ride home, Clara was quiet, and Nathan sensed her turning something over in her mind. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how different my life is now. 6 months ago, I was working in that mill, breathing lint all day, going home to a tiny room with no heat and nothing to eat but bread and a bit of cheese if I was lucky. I thought that was all life would ever be." She looked at him. "And now I have a home and enough food and a man who loves me. Sometimes I am afraid I will wake up and find it was all a dream." "It is not a dream. This is real and it is yours." Nathan lifted her hand to his lips. "You are mine and I am yours, and nothing is going to change that." Winter came to the New Mexico mountains with snow and bitter cold. Nathan had prepared well, and the ranch weathered the storms without major difficulty. The cattle huddled in sheltered valleys, and Miguel and Nathan took turns checking on them every few days, breaking ice on the water sources and making sure none had strayed. Clara made the house warm and welcoming, cooking hearty meals and keeping the fire burning. On the coldest nights, she and Nathan would sit close to the fireplace, reading aloud from books or just talking. Sometimes they would simply sit in comfortable silence, Nathan mending tack or carving small wooden figures while Clara sewed or knitted. It was on one such evening in January that Clara set aside her sewing and placed a hand on her stomach with an odd expression. "Nathan, I think I might be with child." He nearly dropped the piece of leather he was working on. "You think? Are you sure?" "Not entirely sure, but my courses have not come in 2 months and I have been feeling queasy in the mornings." She looked at him nervously. "Are you happy about it?" Happy did not begin to cover what Nathan felt. He crossed to her and knelt beside her chair, placing his hand over hers on her stomach. "I am more than happy. Are you?" "I am terrified," Clara admitted. "But yes, I am happy too. I always wanted children. When do you think the baby will come?" "If I am calculating correctly, sometime in late July or early August." Nathan did the math backward in his head and felt heat creep up his neck. Their first time together. The baby had been conceived their first time together. Clara saw his expression and laughed. "I know, we are very efficient." He kissed her then, long and deep, and when they moved to the bedroom, their lovemaking had a new tenderness, an awareness of the life growing between them. The next months were a mix of joy and worry. Clara blossomed with pregnancy, her body rounding gently, but her limp became more pronounced as her center of balance shifted. She had to give up some of the heavier housework, which frustrated her until Nathan hired a young woman from Pinos Altos named Annie Miller to help a few days a week. Annie was 17, the daughter of a widow who ran a boarding house in town. She was cheerful and hardworking, and she and Clara got along well. Annie was fascinated by Clara's stories of Boston and the wider world, and Clara enjoyed having another woman to talk to about the pregnancy and its attendant discomforts. In late May, when Clara was heavily pregnant and the weather had turned warm, Nathan came in from the fields one afternoon to find her sitting on the porch steps, crying. He was beside her instantly. "What is wrong? Is it the baby?" "No, the baby is fine." Clara wiped at her tears angrily. "I tried to walk down to the creek like I used to, but my leg hurt too much and I could not make it. I hate this. I hate being so limited." Nathan sat beside her and pulled her close. "The baby will be here soon and then it will get easier." "Will it?" "I am going to have a child to care for, Nathan. What if I cannot keep up? What if I cannot chase after a toddler with this leg? Then we will figure it out together. You are not alone in this, Clara. But you work all day. You cannot be watching me and the baby constantly." "I will hire more help if I need to. Rosa has already offered to teach you how to carry a baby in one of those wrap things she uses, so your hands are free and you do not have to chase them everywhere. We will manage." Clara leaned against him, and he felt some of the tension leave her body. "I am sorry. I do not usually fall apart like this. You are allowed to fall apart sometimes. That is what I am here for." As Clara's time drew near, Nathan found himself gripped by a different kind of fear. He had heard stories of women dying in childbirth, of babies born too early or too weak to survive. The nearest doctor was in Silver City, hours away, and though the midwife in Pinos Altos was experienced, the thought of something going wrong terrified him. He did not share these fears with Clara, not wanting to add to her worries, but she knew him well enough by now to sense his mood. "I am going to be fine," she told him one night as they lay in bed, her swollen belly pressed against his side. Women have been having babies since the beginning of time. I know, but those women were not you. Nathan Grayson, are you going soft on me? Where you are concerned, absolutely. The baby came on a hot August afternoon when the sky was the color of brass and thunderstorms threatened in the distance. Nathan had been working near the house, unwilling to go far with Clara so close to her time. When her water broke, he sent Miguel racing for the midwife while he helped Clara into the bedroom and tried not to panic. Rosa Torres arrived before the midwife, thank God, and she took charge with calm efficiency. She shooed Nathan out of the room, and he paced the main room like a caged animal, jumping at every sound from behind the closed door. The midwife, Mrs. Chen, arrived an hour later. She was a tiny Chinese woman who had come to New Mexico with the railroad workers and stayed when she married a local merchant. She was known for her skill and her no-nonsense attitude, and Nathan felt a measure of relief when she disappeared into the bedroom. The labor went on for hours. Nathan sat at the kitchen table, his head in his hands, praying to a God he was not sure he believed in. Miguel sat with him for a while, offering quiet companionship before returning home to his own family. Annie arrived at some point and made coffee that Nathan could not drink. As the sun set and the threatened storms rolled in, Nathan heard Clara cry out, a sound of pain that made his hands clench into fists. He started toward the bedroom, but Rosa emerged and blocked his way. "You cannot help in there," she said firmly. "Mrs. Chen knows what she is doing. Your wife is strong. Is she all right? She is working hard. Birth is hard work. But yes, she is all right." Another hour passed. The storm broke overhead, rain hammering the roof, lightning turning the room bright as day for frozen moments. And then, cutting through the sound of the storm, Nathan heard a baby cry. He was on his feet before he knew he had moved. The bedroom door opened, and Mrs. Chen emerged, holding a small bundle wrapped in clean linen. "You have a son, Mr. Grayson. A strong, healthy boy." Nathan took the baby with shaking hands. His son. The baby was red-faced and squalling, a tiny fist waving in the air. He had a surprising amount of dark hair and eyes that were screwed shut against the lamplight. "And Clara, she is tired but well. You can go in now." Nathan carried his son into the bedroom. Clara lay propped up on pillows, her hair damp with sweat, her face pale but radiant. When she saw Nathan with the baby, she smiled. "Come meet your son properly," she said, her voice hoarse. Nathan sat carefully on the edge of the bed and placed the baby in Clara's arms. She gazed down at their child with such love that Nathan felt his throat tighten. "He is perfect," Clara whispered. "Look at him, Nathan. We made him. You did all the work. We both did our part." She looked up at him. "What should we name him?" They had discussed names throughout the pregnancy but had not settled on anything definitive. Now, looking at his son, Nathan thought of his own father, dead these many years, who had taught him the value of hard work and honest dealing. "What about Joseph?" "It was my father's name. Joseph Grayson." Clara tested it out. "I like it. Joseph Nathan Grayson. He does not need my name too. I want him to have it. You are a good man, and I want our son to know he should strive to be like you." The baby, Joseph, made a small sound and turned his head toward Clara, already seeking to nurse. Mrs. Chen showed Clara how to help him latch, and Nathan watched in wonder as his son began to feed. "I will leave you now," Mrs. Chen said. "I will come back tomorrow to check on you both. Send for me if there are any problems, but I expect there will not be. You both did well." After the midwife left and Rosa had tidied the room and departed, Nathan and Clara were alone with their son. The storm had passed, leaving the air fresh and cool. Nathan opened the window a crack and the smell of wet earth filled the room. "Are you really all right?" Nathan asked, brushing Clara's damp hair back from her face. I am sore and exhausted, but yes, I am all right." She smiled up at him. "We have a son, Nathan, a family." He kissed her forehead gently. "Thank you for what? For coming west, for taking a chance on me, for giving me this." He gestured at the baby, at the three of them together in the lamplight. "Thank you for walking slow," Clara said softly, "so we could always be together." The first weeks with a newborn were exhausting and wonderful in equal measure. Joseph proved to be a hungry baby who needed feeding every few hours, day and night. Clara was determined to manage on her own, but Nathan insisted on helping, changing the baby and walking him when he was fussy, bringing Clara water and food while she nursed. Annie continued to come several days a week to help with the housework, and Rosa visited often, showing Clara the wrap she had mentioned, a long piece of soft cloth that could be tied to hold the baby securely against Clara's chest. With Joseph in the wrap, Clara could move around the house more easily, her hands free for other tasks, and the baby seemed to like the closeness. As summer faded into autumn, Joseph grew and changed. His eyes, which had been the dark blue of all newborns, began to shift to a color between Nathan's gray and Clara's green. His hair came in lighter than it had been at birth, showing hints of Clara's auburn. He was a happy baby, quick to smile, and watching Clara with him made Nathan fall even more in love with his wife. In September, when Joseph was just over a month old, Nathan found Clara in the rocking chair on the porch, nursing the baby and looking out over the valley with a contemplative expression. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, settling into the chair beside her. "About a year ago. I was still in Boston, working at the mill, so tired I could barely stand. I would go to sleep every night wondering if this was all there would ever be." She looked down at Joseph, then over at Nathan. "And now look at us. I have a husband I love, a son, a home. Sometimes it still does not feel real. It is real, and it is just the beginning," Clara smiled. "I hope we have more children. I always wanted a big family. How big, I do not know. As many as we are blessed with, I suppose." She shifted Joseph to her shoulder to burp him. "Do you want more children?" "With you? As many as you want to give me." They spent a peaceful evening together, the three of them, and Nathan thought about how much his life had changed. He had thought he was content before Clara, satisfied with his ranch and his solitary existence. Now he could not imagine going back to that loneliness. His family was everything. The years that followed were not without challenges. The ranch faced a hard winter in 1884 that killed a portion of the herd, and money was tight for a while. Clara's leg continued to trouble her, especially in cold weather, and she had days when the pain left her short-tempered and frustrated. But they faced everything together, and their love deepened with each obstacle overcome. Joseph grew into a sturdy, curious boy who followed his father everywhere he was allowed. When he was 2, Clara became pregnant again, and in the spring of 1885, she gave birth to a daughter they named Margaret Rose, after both their mothers. Margaret had Nathan's quiet temperament and Clara's coloring, and Joseph was fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to help with everything. 2 years later, another son arrived, Andrew, who proved to be the loudest and most energetic of their children. Rosa joked that Andrew had enough spirit for 3 babies, and he kept everyone on their toes from the day he was born. The house that had seemed so spacious when Clara first arrived grew snug with the additions of 3 children. Nathan talked about adding on, building more bedrooms, but Clara said she liked having everyone close. On winter evenings, the main room would be full of noise and activity, the children playing while Nathan and Clara worked on the endless tasks of running a ranch and raising a family. In 1888, when Joseph was 6 and starting to learn his letters from Clara's patient instruction, Nathan made a decision. He had been thinking about it for months, watching Clara teach their son, seeing her light up when she talked about books and learning. One evening after the children were in bed, he brought up the subject. "What would you think about starting a school here?" Clara looked up from her mending in surprise. "A school? Here on the ranch, not just for our children, though they would benefit. But there are other families in the valley now and their children have nowhere to learn. You could teach them." "Nathan, I only finished 8th grade myself. I am not a trained teacher. You know more than most around here, and you love teaching. I have seen it with Joseph." Clara set down her sewing, her expression thoughtful. "Where would we hold classes? We could build a small schoolhouse near the road, make it available to any family in the area. That would be expensive. We can afford it. The ranch is doing well. You would really do that?" "Build a school just so I could teach. I would do anything to make you happy, Clara. You know that." She crossed to him and settled in his lap, something she still did despite 6 years of marriage and 3 children. "I am already happy. But yes, I would love to teach. I would love to run a school." Nathan hired carpenters from Silver City, and by the fall of 1888, a neat one-room schoolhouse stood at the junction of the Ranch Road and the main road to Pinos Altos. It had large windows to let in light, a good stove for winter, desks that Nathan had ordered from a catalog, and a chalkboard that Clara treated like treasure. Word spread quickly that Mrs. Grayson was opening a school, free to any child in the area. On the first day, 15 children showed up, ranging from 5 to 14 years old. Clara was nervous but determined, and she threw herself into teaching with the same dedication she brought to everything. Nathan would watch her sometimes through the schoolhouse window as he passed by on ranch business. She would be at the chalkboard, animated and engaged, and the children clearly adored her. Her limp, which had been such a source of shame and worry when she first arrived, was simply part of who she was now. The children did not care. They cared that Mrs. Grayson was patient and kind, that she made learning interesting, that she believed they could achieve more than their circumstances might suggest. The school became a gathering point for the community. Parents would stop by to chat with Clara when they dropped off or collected their children. Friendships formed between families who had been isolated on distant homesteads. Nathan found himself hosting occasional gatherings, barn dances and harvest celebrations, and Clara thrived in the social atmosphere. In 1890, Clara became pregnant once more, and in early 1891 she gave birth to twin girls, Emily and Elizabeth. The twins were identical, with dark hair and mischievous smiles, and they kept everyone guessing which was which. Clara had to temporarily close the school for a few months after their birth, but Annie, now married and living nearby, took over teaching duties until Clara was ready to return. Life was full and busy and sometimes overwhelming, but Nathan would not have changed any of it. On quiet evenings when the children were finally asleep and he and Clara could steal a few moments alone, he would look at her and marvel that this was his life. "What?" Clara would ask, catching him staring. "Just thinking about how lucky I am. We both are." And it was true. They had built something real and lasting, a family and a home and a life that mattered. The ranch prospered, the school flourished, and their children grew strong and healthy. In the summer of 1895, Joseph turned 13 and started taking on more serious responsibilities around the ranch. He was a natural with horses and cattle, patient and observant like his father. Margaret, at 10, had become Clara's right hand, helping with her younger siblings and showing an interest in teaching. Andrew, at 8, was still wild and energetic, but beginning to channel that energy into useful work. The twins, now 4, were inseparable and into everything. Nathan was 45 years old, his hair showing gray at the temples, his body showing the wear of years of hard physical labor. Clara was 37, laugh lines crinkling the corners of her eyes, her auburn hair streaked with silver. They had been married 13 years, and Nathan loved her more with each passing day. One evening in late summer, Nathan and Clara took a rare walk alone down to the creek, leaving the older children in charge of the younger ones. It was the same path they had walked on Clara's first day at the ranch, though it was more worn now from years of use. They sat on the flat rock where Nathan had first told Clara he was falling in love with her, and they dangled their feet in the cool water just as they had done all those years ago. "Do you remember the first time we sat here?" Clara asked. "Of course. I told you I was falling in love with you, and I said I might be falling in love with you too." She leaned against his shoulder. "I was terrified that day, so afraid of everything. You hid it well. Not well enough. You saw right through me." Nathan put his arm around her. "What are you afraid of now?" Clara was quiet for a moment, thinking. "Getting old, I suppose, not being able to keep up with the children, losing you." "You are not losing me. I plan to be around annoying you for many more years." She laughed. "Good. I would be very put out if you left me to manage all this alone." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the water flow past. The same water, Nathan thought, but never the same water. Always moving, always changing, like life itself. "Clara. Thank you for saying yes. When I asked if I could call you Clara on that first day, thank you for taking a chance on me." She turned to look at him, her creek water eyes serious. "Thank you for walking slow so we could always be together. You kept your promise, Nathan. Every single day, you have kept that promise." He kissed her there in the fading light, and it felt like the first time and the 1,000th time all at once. When they finally walked back to the house hand in hand, moving at the easy pace they had perfected over years together, their children's voices drifted out through the open windows, arguing and laughing and calling for their parents. This was home. This was family. This was love. The years continued to pass. Joseph grew into a fine young man and began courting a girl from Silver City, the daughter of a merchant. Margaret showed such skill with teaching that Clara began training her to eventually take over the school. Andrew settled down somewhat and discovered a talent for working with horses, training them with patience and skill. The twins started school and proved to be bright students who kept Clara on her toes. In 1898, when Nathan was 48 and Clara was 40, they took a trip to Santa Fe, their first extended time away from the ranch and children. It was a second honeymoon of sorts, though neither of them called it that. They stayed in a hotel, ate in restaurants, and walked the old streets of the city like young lovers. On their last night, as they sat in the hotel dining room, Nathan reached across the table and took Clara's hand. "I have been thinking," he said. "About what?" "About how I placed that advertisement in the Boston newspaper almost 17 years ago, not really believing anything would come of it, and how you answered it, even though you were terrified." "I was desperate," Clara corrected with a smile. "You were brave. You are still brave." He squeezed her hand. "I want you to know that marrying you was the best decision I ever made. You have given me everything, Clara. A family, a home, a purpose beyond just working the land. You made my life mean something." Tears sparkled in Clara's eyes. "You gave me those same things. You saved me, Nathan, not just from the mill, but from a life of loneliness and hopelessness. You saw me, really saw me, and you loved me anyway. Not anyway, because of who you are." They returned to the ranch renewed and even more committed to each other. The children had managed well in their absence, with Joseph taking charge and Margaret keeping everyone organized. The ranch was in good order, the cattle thriving. Life moved forward. Joseph married his sweetheart in 1900 and built a house on the far side of the ranch property. Nathan gave him a portion of the land and cattle to start his own herd. In 1902, Margaret became engaged to a young teacher from Silver City, and Clara began planning a wedding with the joy of a mother seeing her daughter happy. Andrew, now 20, was courting two different girls and could not seem to decide between them, much to everyone's amusement. The twins, at 11, were still inseparable and showing no signs of slowing down. In the spring of 1903, as Nathan was helping repair the roof on the schoolhouse, he slipped and fell. He hit the ground hard, and for a moment he could not breathe. Clara came running, her limp more pronounced now but not slowing her panic. "Nathan, do not move, let me check for broken bones." He had cracked several ribs and badly bruised his shoulder, but nothing was broken. The doctor from Silver City ordered him to rest for several weeks, which nearly drove Nathan mad. He was not good at sitting still, but Clara was firm. "You are not 20 years old anymore," she scolded. "You need to let your body heal. I am not an invalid." "No, but you are injured. There is a difference." She softened her tone. "Please, Nathan. Let Joseph and Andrew handle the ranch for a few weeks. Rest." He rested, though it went against every instinct. Clara sat with him, reading aloud from newspapers and books, and they talked for hours about everything and nothing. It reminded Nathan of their early days together when they were still learning each other. "You ever regret it?" he asked one afternoon. "Leaving Boston? Coming out here to marry a stranger?" Clara looked up from the book she was reading, startled. "Never, not once. Why would you ask that?" "I do not know. Sometimes I think about everything you gave up." "I gave up nothing of value. I gained everything that matters." She set the book aside and took his hand. "Nathan, you are my home. Wherever you are, that is where I want to be. Whether I am 18 or 80, that will never change." His ribs healed slowly, and by summer he was back to full strength. But the fall had shaken him, reminded him that he was not immortal. He began making concrete plans for the ranch's future, dividing the land between his children, ensuring that Clara would be provided for no matter what happened. Margaret married in the fall of 1903, a beautiful ceremony at the ranch with guests from all over the territory. Clara cried through the entire wedding, happy tears that she did not bother to hide. Nathan stood beside her, holding her hand, and thought about their own wedding so many years ago in that small church in Pinos Altos. "Time moves too fast," Clara whispered as they watched Margaret and her new husband ride away. "It does, but we have made good use of it." More years passed. Joseph and his wife had 3 children, making Nathan and Clara grandparents. Margaret had 2 children. Andrew finally chose one of his sweethearts and married her in 1906. The twins, Emily and Elizabeth, were courted by brothers from a neighboring ranch and had a double wedding in 1908, causing great excitement in the community. By 1910, the ranch was firmly established as one of the most successful in the region. The school Clara had started had grown, and the territory, now the state of New Mexico after finally achieving statehood in 1912, recognized it as an official public school. Clara was named the official school teacher, receiving a small salary from the state, which she promptly donated back to buy books and supplies for her students. Nathan was 60 in 1912, still working the ranch, but letting his sons handle more of the physical labor. His hair had gone completely gray, and his joints ached in cold weather, but he was healthy and content. Clara was 54, her auburn hair now mostly silver, her limp more pronounced than ever but still not stopping her from doing what she wanted. They had 14 grandchildren now, with more on the way. The house was always full of noise when the family gathered, multiple generations sharing meals and stories. One Sunday in the summer of 1913, the entire family gathered for a barbecue to celebrate Nathan and Clara's 30th wedding anniversary. The yard was full of children playing, adults talking and laughing, the smell of roasting meat and fresh bread filling the air. As the sun began to set, painting the valley in shades of gold and purple, Nathan stood to make a toast. The crowd quieted and all eyes turned to him. 30 years ago, he began, I sent an advertisement to a Boston newspaper looking for a wife. I was lonely and tired of being alone, but I had no idea what I was really asking for. I thought I wanted someone to cook and clean and keep me company. What I got was so much more than that. He looked at Clara, sitting beside him with their youngest grandchild in her lap. I got a partner. A best friend. The love of my life. Clara came to me from across the country and she was afraid, but she came anyway. She built a home here, raised our children, started a school, and made this ranch into more than just a place to work. She made it a home. Tears were running down Clara's face now, and several of their daughters were crying too. When Clara first stepped off that train, Nathan continued, I noticed her limp, and I told her I would walk slow so we could always be together. That was the best promise I ever made because it was not just about walking. It was about life, about meeting her where she was, going at her pace, being together through everything. And she has done the same for me, slowing down when I needed it, giving me strength when I faltered, always being there. He raised his glass. To Clara, my wife, my love, my everything, thank you for 30 years of walking together. Here is to 30 more. To Clara. The crowd echoed, raising their glasses. Clara stood and Nathan pulled her into his arms. They kissed while their children and grandchildren cheered, and Nathan thought that this moment, right here, was as perfect as life could be. Later, after the guests had gone home and the house was quiet, Nathan and Clara walked down to the creek one last time that day. The same walk they had taken so many times over the years, at the same slow pace that had become second nature. You think we will get 30 more years? Clara asked as they sat on their rock. I hope so. But if we do not, I will be grateful for every day we have had. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Me too, though I plan to stick around for a good while yet. Someone has to keep you out of trouble. True enough. They sat in the gathering darkness, listening to the water and the night birds, hands clasped together. The same hands that had clasped in that church 30 years ago, now weathered and scarred but still fitting together perfectly. Nathan did not get his 30 more years. In the winter of 1918, the influenza pandemic that was sweeping the world came to New Mexico. Nathan caught it while helping a neighbor whose entire family was ill. He insisted on going despite Clara's protests, and he paid the price. He died in February of 1919, with Clara holding his hand and their children gathered around his bed. His last words were to Clara, I love you. I will wait for you. Clara grieved hard but not long. She had too much to do, too many people depending on her. She continued teaching at the school for another 5 years before finally retiring at 67. She spent her remaining years surrounded by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, the matriarch of a family that had spread throughout New Mexico. She died peacefully in her sleep in March of 1928 at the age of 70. She was buried next to Nathan on a hillside overlooking the valley, where the wildflowers bloomed every spring. On her headstone, beneath her name and dates, were the words, She walked slow so we could always be together. The ranch stayed in the family, passed down through the generations. The school Clara started continued operating for nearly a century before finally being converted into a community center. But her influence remained in the educated children who went on to college, in the teachers she trained, in the community she helped build. And every year on the anniversary of Nathan and Clara's wedding, the family would gather at their graves and tell the story of the mail-order bride who had a limp and the rancher who promised to walk slow so they could always be together. It was a love story that had started with a telegram and a leap of faith, and it had built something that lasted far beyond 2 lifetimes. Their great-great-grandchildren still live on the land Nathan claimed and Clara made a home. The creeks still run clear, the mountains still turn purple at sunset, and the valley still holds the memory of 2 people who loved each other enough to build a life together, one slow step at a time,